dogs. We had her for 6 years. But she had a chip. That's a crazy story. That's a crazy story. Because I was like, she had an owner. And the owner lived 60 miles away from where I live. 60.
Wow, that's a long way.
So I don't know how she got to my hood, but she lived a vida loca for 6 years.
But if you're gonna steal a cat 16 miles away, we're not very smart. We steal them from right down the street. Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, really? How did that? Oh, because they checked the chips. And what did they say? Thank you?
And they didn't say.
But they're gonna sue you.
No, they just said that they don't know how she got where she got. That
Yeah.
She had a bad habit of jumping in cars, which she did because she would jump in my car anytime the door was open. So they
Oh,
think
my
somebody
goodness.
just dropped her on the mesa,
Yeah.
and that's how she became a
Oh.
feral cat, and then I got her.
Oh.
And then she was loved until I thought she was gonna die, and then I took her in. And I was like, I think she's
You can have her back.
She's sick. Something's wrong
Poor
with her.
thing.
Yeah, but she didn't die.
Yeah. Well, good.
So I was happy about that.
That's only good news
For
for you.
today, yes. it
That's the
is.
only good news. Aren't you happy about the election?
No, I'm not.
How come?
Because
I
yeah,
don't
I can't
mind
say
this
because
year.
you'll just throw me out of church.
I
right
won't
now.
throw you out of church.
You will throw me out of church if you.
Hey, babe,
what
do
I
me a
was
favor.
thinking.
Those little
Well, there's
post-its
still
that are by my.
the houses in it, so at least take those, I'll be happy.
Did you stay up until the very end
No.
watching all the
I
counts?
saw her. Her speech was just awful.
I didn't hear hers. I just
It
heard
was
his
bad.
early
Very
on.
cocky. She was cocky. Do you want me to tell you the news?
The weather.
You want me? Oh yeah, the weather. Do you want to hear
Oh,
the weather? Do
my.
you want to hear the weather?
Thank you.
It's 4 more
Oh,
years.
my.
That's the weather. She was so cocky.
Wow.
And she said, I got you, LGBTQ. I got you, women's rights. That's why I'm wearing pink. And she did not, one time that I only watched it for a short period because it made me sick and sin really bad. So I had to turn it off.
Yeah.
So, but not once did she say, well, let's try to work together with everybody to make it
Yeah.
a better state. No, she just was mocking.
So as I understand that, of the number of people that voted, I think just under 400,000, like 370,370 people voted to continue what's going on.
Yeah.
So Democrat votes,
Yes.
right? I was just looking up a while ago some of the numbers.
How sad.
So in poverty level in New Mexico, I think we're third in the U.S. That's something to brag about. Thank you. Give you a mascot.
Ooh, you're messing up. Oh my goodness. Kiss his head like I kissed her. Just
That's
kiss
why
the
he
head.
does the mask policy, just to keep me away.
Kiss her like a. So of the number of people that voted, what did I say? About just almost 400,000 people said we want to keep it like it is. So now we're about the third highest poverty level. Is that lowest or highest? Right?
Yeah.
Quality of education. I thought this was kind of weird. 51st in the U.S. I thought there were only 50 states. That shows you how bad we count. Maybe they're figuring what Puerto Rico and Guam and because I think
Maybe.
yeah, Obama counted 56. Biden said 56, 54, yeah. But we're 51st in the U.S. And again, I'm looking over the last 4 years where we are. Crime, second highest in the U.S.
In the U.S., we're right up there with Chicago.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I
Homelessness,
think, aren't we worse per capita, though? Probably, because
possibly. When the numbers I looked at says second highest. I think it depends on which crime too. This is crime against persons.
oh no, well.
This is not just like they
Homicide.
steal from your yard or somebody steals your cat.
I didn't steal her. I
Or
loved
or
her.
you or somebody's cat jumps in your car.
Not even a cat person.
So crime against persons, second highest in the U.S. And again, almost 400,000 people said, steady she goes.
Yep.
We want it to continue like this. Illegal immigration. Now this is nationwide, but most of the illegal immigrants, and again, these are the number that I'm about to give are not people that come across. I mean, yesterday I was someplace and I was about to do a road rage thing because there was a car in front of me and a car beside me and they were all crazy. And they were both from out of state, kind of south, way south. I think so. Guys like that are not coming over illegally. A lot of people come over legally and, you know, they drive and they work and back and forth. These are just people that are illegally crossing. These are just people that are illegally crossing that are caught. These are people that are illegally crossing that are caught and arrested. Okay? 4 years ago, and again, the governor didn't do this by herself. She had the president's help for half of these years. 467,000 people in 2018. These are illegal aliens who came across the border that were caught and were arrested. About 500,000. In 2022, 2 million. So it went from 500,000 to 2 million. Again, she didn't do this by herself, but they're coming across, you know, so, how do you get here? New Mexico, Arizona, California? Some people get in through Florida, but you're gonna have to swim a long way. The Rio Grande's enough to have to swim, but
DeSantis ain't gonna put up with that, so.
I don't know.
I love that man.
Who?
DeSantis.
DeSantis sending those guys up to,
Love him.
what did Trump call in?
Trump called him, yeah, you don't like him for some
He
reason.
does it
I
well.
thought
He
he
sees
did.
him as a
I think
threat
he's
already.
very jealous that he might run for
Yeah.
president.
What do you call him? De-sanctimonious?
Did he? What do you call him?
De-sanctimonious. Like you holier than thou. Yeah. Come on,
he was trash
Donald.
talking.
Come on, man.
I know.
Oh, that's Biden, isn't it?
That's Biden.
And then homelessness. Did I already hit that to 2018? And again, these are just the people that can be counted. These are the people that we count. 2,500 homeless people in the state. That's a lot of people. In 2022, 3,400. And again, the numbers are going up. If this poor guy, he's got a little more money than I do. This poor guy who bought the commercial property downtown. I forget his name.
Oh, I've
He's a
seen him on the
realtor.
news.
He bought this commercial property and he can't do anything with it because
He's the homeless
they're not
guy.
only breaking his windows, they're camping out on his sidewalks, and he can't do anything about it. A lot of guys are getting in trouble with the city because they're putting up fences around their businesses and they don't have permits, and they can't get a permit to put a fence around their business. But homeless people can build their little
Their
houses,
tents.
their tents, and some of them are actually building,
Cardboard tents.
yeah. The mayor, so again, the governor's not doing this by herself, but our mayor, right, is pushing really hard to protect the homeless, but he's not pushing really hard to protect the rights of the property owner. You guys spend a lot of money to try to keep a decent place, to try to have a place of your own. Now, some people need help, and I'm not very sensitive, I guess. If a guy's just whacked out on drugs because he chooses to be, I was talking to a kid in here one day. He's probably, I don't know, I think he's about 24 years old, maybe 26, but we were talking in here, and he says he wants to live on the street because he was living with his grandparents in Texas, and he came here because things are nice in New Mexico to live on the streets, he said, and he lives on the streets because he wants to do drugs, and he doesn't want to basically play by the rules. He doesn't want to be in a situation where he can't drink or he can't smoke or he can't, so he chooses to live on the street. Guys like that, that's a whole other thing. And I think there's a place for them. I think there should be. If a guy doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. And they shouldn't put pressure on you because they choose not to live by your rules. I mean, you're the ones who are working hard to do it. If a person actually needs help, then, you know, I think I would hate for somebody to force me to take some kind of, what's the word?
Vaccination?
Psycho, huh?
A vaccination?
Yeah, I hated that enough. But psycho,
Antipsychotic?
what's that? Antipsychotics, yeah. I kept thinking of the good one. That would be the not anti, I'm kidding. Yeah, I would hate for anybody to make me take anything. But if without medication, I'm just whacked out and I can't function in society, I would hope, you know, whenever I see a homeless guy out there, and my daughter too, it never occurs to me with my daughter as much, but with my son, how much I would appreciate it if somebody would take care of my son if he was ever in that situation, or my grandkids. You know, I can't imagine them, or my daughter either, I can't imagine them ever in a situation like that. But if they were, how much I would appreciate it if you would go out of your way to try to help them. So people that need help, absolutely, absolutely. People who need to be on medication, I hate forcing stuff on people, but there ought to be a way to protect them. And you, people who are just crazy, you need to be protected from them. I kind of feel the same way about guys in prison. I'm pretty bad. I'm pretty bad. You know, I love my puppies, but if a dog turns on you and is just vicious and you know, is just going to kill you, you just have to put it down. That's just an awful thing. It's just an awful thing. But it's not that hard. It wouldn't be that hard to take care of crime. We just have to do what the Bible says. Make a person pay for their crimes quickly. But that's what government is for. Government is to punish the wrongdoer and protect the good doer, to protect the good and to punish the godless. But anyway, homelessness has gone from 2,500 to 3,400, and they will tell you that New Mexico is just a nice place to come because there are a lot of benefits. They take care of you here. They give you money. They give you a place. They don't make you get off the street. And then abortion. That's the big one. Again, these are numbers of people these are the numbers that are given to us by the abortion providers. They have a vested interest in keeping the numbers low, right? And these are not all the abortions. These are just the abortions that are counted. These are the abortions that are counted that are given to the people who have a vested interest in making the number low. About 18,000 babies are killed every year. Well, no, 4,500 in New Mexico. Nationwide, it's almost 1 million per year. What was the number? Nationally, the number is, I don't remember, 800 and some thousand babies. Again, that's the number of babies that are aborted. Those are the numbers that are given to us by the people who say they're keeping count and who have a vested interest in telling us the numbers are lower. So about 1 million babies are killed every year. In New Mexico, it's about 4,500 every year. So over the last 4 years, again, she was very happy to not only continue abortions continuing here, but has made very clear we will protect anyone who has an abortion. We will protect anyone who comes in from out of state. We'll protect any provider. And I keep using this example, but it's so graphic, when little Victoria Martins, when she was killed and cut up, that's what abortion is, except she was 8, and the little ones are somewhere between, you know, and birth. And they're not dead when they're being cut up, chopped up. Yeah. So I'm intrigued. There must be a law that's keeping Republicans or conservative politician wannabes. There must be a law that keeps them from letting people know what abortion is. They never show any pictures. That would be too graphic. They never explain what it is. That would be pornographic. You know, the words. I'm trying to think, what would they call it? Because they insist, I'm talking about conservatives. Conservatives insist on allowing them to frame the argument. And the way the progressive liberal Democrats are framing the argument, they're saying that abortion is women's health. It's women's rights. I'm not a girl, but I think women's health is those things that I don't like to talk about, but it's not killing babies. Killing babies is what abortion is. Yeah. Having the baby. Yeah. But nobody's against, my goodness, nobody's against women going to the doctor and having adequate treatment. And if you don't have the money for it, we pay for it. You pay for it when you're working, and if, you know, heaven forbid you're in a situation where you can't work, you've already paid in for that. And the rest of us are continuing to pay for that. And Obama made it sure that everybody could get phones and health care for the rest of eternity without any cost. I was kind of being facetious, but it's kind of that way. So and now I see you get a tablet for $17. I don't even know what a tablet is. I'm gonna stop and find out if I can get me one.
You have to do Pepe on food stamps.
Oh my goodness. But women's health is not abortion. Abortion is killing a kid. It's chopping up a child. It's horrible. But for some reason, conservatives don't
They're not doing anything.
push the point.
Yeah, I don't get it.
They let the other guys frame the argument. So anyway, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people that voted. We want to keep it the same way. 370,000, 307 people, and that's probably not all the votes, that was just as tabulated when I got this number here just a little bit ago. 370,307 Democrats voted to continue these numbers. And she said she's going to push it even harder. Yes. The gay rights agenda, the abortion rights. From the time that Roe v. Wade was overturned here in the last, a few months, she has pushed really hard to promise millions and millions of dollars to provide legal protection for providers, legal protection for people who come in from out of state to have their babies killed, and to build more clinics to have babies killed. People get up, they get outraged about it. Places like Auschwitz and places in Nazi Germany that were established just to kill people. Well, that's what an abortion clinic is, except they're babies. And so, okay, so what do we do about it? Anything? Are we supposed to do anything?
We vote against it.
We vote against
We
it.
don't win.
We could gripe, we can grovel, we can protest like they do. Nah, we don't do that. We have jobs. we can't go protest like they do. Have a sit-in for weeks over there on somebody's. Yeah. Does God know that this is happening?
Yes.
Yeah, He does. Does God know what Biden's doing? Biden doesn't know what Biden's doing, but God knows what Biden is doing. And Kamala, what kind of person
She don't even make sense when she
intentionally puts someone like that in office? I want her to lead me. That's crazy.
Not Biden brain, he's got dementia.
Biden brain? She has Biden
I
brain?
have Biden brain with me.
Oh no, you haven't?
I do. At work, sometimes they call me Biden,
Oh no.
but yeah, she doesn't make any sense when she talks.
They only put her in there because she's a woman. She's black. I don't
Black
know.
woman.
She's not even black.
I know what I'm saying, but
She's not even black.
she's not.
Yeah. Oh well. That's not very nice of me. But this is where we are, and God knows. So we carry on. I just think that I think those of us who are conservative enough to care, to talk about it, and you don't talk about politics and religion in polite company. Those are the important things. Part of it is maintaining the freedoms so that you can preach the gospel, maintaining the freedoms so that you can disciple people, maintaining the freedom. That's what the political side is. It's not just we love America. We do. I love this way of life. But that's not for us. That's not the reason. We know the United States of America is going to go down. Every other country is going to go down. Every country is going to follow Antichrist. So, would I die for America? Would I die to keep this way of life? Would I die to protect my family? Yes. Would I die to protect you? Maybe. Maybe. Would I die just because somebody in Washington says, you go kill somebody? You go over there, because if you don't go over there and fight, they're going to come over here. And I bought that argument for all of my life. I'm already old, and I bought that argument all my life. If we're not fighting them over there, we're going to have to fight them here. I get it. But when you really look at it, generally, somebody's stupid. Some spider says, I want your land. I want your money. I want your oil. Well, kill the spider. If you're going to go to war, don't send all of our kids over there. Kill the spider. I know it sounds easy. Yeah. But we don't have to play the way we've been playing. We don't have to send our kids to die. I appreciate our soldiers. I appreciate our troops. I appreciate what they've done. I appreciate what they're doing. What I hate is the guys in the offices in Washington or someplace else that are saying, you know what? Let's go fight. And it's that simple. It's that simple. It'd be different if it was just Eddie and me getting into it. Did we ever really fight? You just used to get mad at me and walk off, didn't you? You never gave me the thrill of fighting with me. But normal brothers, they throw a few. It'd be different if in a fit of rage, Putin and what's his name?
Zelensky.
Him. They just put them in the cage, man. And the one that comes out, comes out.
That would be a good one. I'd pay to see that.
I'd pay to see that one.
I would be rooting for food.
I
I know she loves Zelensky, but I'd probably cheer for Putin.
Did you say you'd probably cheer for
I
Putin?
would cheer for Putin.
Oh, gosh.
I proudly say it.
But at least the two people who are responsible for sending people in. Now I understand if somebody comes in and attacks us right now, I'm not just going to sit here. Of course, we're not just going to sit here. We're going to do what we can to protect you. And if you're in that situation, I would appreciate you doing what you can to protect us. That's what you do. But this is not that. This is not in the heat of right now. This is people intentionally, deliberately, premeditatively, is that a word? Planning to send people in. And I don't know that it has to be done that way, especially now, in this day and age. We can fight with the technology. All we have to do is go take out their electrical grid.
They're going to do that to us.
They're going to do it to us. Yeah.
Going to.
Yeah.
That's going to be the downfall of America.
But
Watch.
somebody decides to send them in. So, what I fight for, I know that would make guys who come to this church not appreciate what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate our troops, what they've done and what they're doing. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. I don't appreciate the guys in Washington or Virginia or places like that, New York, that are making the decisions to put us in harm's way. So I can whine about it, but again, God knows. God knows. God knows. So what are we supposed to do? I'm telling you, I really think He wants us to figure out a way to keep praying and reaching people. How are you going to reach them? I don't know. But we've gotta. That's the only reason we're here. It's the only reason He hasn't killed us yet. So that we can become more Christ-like and bring other people to Jesus. That's it. There's nothing else. Come to Jesus, become more like Jesus. Why? So that I can help other people come to Jesus, become more. That's it. So if some ministries are different than other ministries, obviously, and maybe I put us in a position where we're not going to be able to make it happen in these four walls, but it doesn't take away the privilege and responsibility of reaching people for Jesus, helping them become more like Jesus, wherever that happens, however that happens. And I think as we see this kind of stuff going on, my goodness, how can the time not be short? Not necessarily that Jesus is coming soon, not necessarily that Antichrist is right around the corner, but my goodness, how can we survive much? I mean, we've been pretty fortunate that as far as I know, we haven't been one of these statistics, personal, crimes against persons yet, but the night is still young, the time is short. Yeah, the time is short. So, what is there to give thanks for? Evidently a lot. Let me give you a couple of thoughts that as I'm looking over Thanksgiving messages that I've brought and new possibilities. I mean, how many different ways can you say give thanks? It's like Merry Christmas again for 4 weeks. Okay, what am I going to say? It's not just that, and it's not just looking for a different way to say it. But evidently, God wants us to think about these things, and God didn't set up Thanksgiving. He allowed whoever came over to take the land away from whoever was here first, and that's just dirty. It's just dirty. And whatever the French did, that was just dirty. And whatever the Spanish did when they got, that was just dirty. And what the Mexicans did when they came across, that was just dirty. And the Incas and the Mayans and the Vikings, that's just dirty. Just coming over, just taking stuff away from you because they could, that's just dirty. Yeah, but before we belonged to Mexico, we belonged to Spain. My guys were.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. She said. And then my guys, the Vikings, were here before you guys.
I think we migrated.
Yeah.
More likely.
Who was here first? I don't know. But the point is, it seems like everybody who showed up here was taken away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Native tribes too. First Nations people too were taken away from others. We watch the movies and we read the stories, and they've been very romanticized. My goodness, there was a lot of killing going on between tribes. Cannibalism. The stuff that was happening in South America and Mexico was happening here. I'm not saying every native tribe was doing that, but it was happening here. There's a reason God took it away from them. Whoever them, Mexicans, Mayans, Incans, First Nations, who did I leave out? French. There's a reason that God took it away from them. Any people group that intentionally turns away from God, what do they lose? I don't know, a bunch of L words, right? their liberties,
their loot,
their land,
their
their lives, their language, lifestyle. When a people group turns away from God, God takes stuff away from them. All of these countries owned the United. Who said they could own it? When we bought the bar, that land on the other side of the block wall was vacant. I could have just gone over there and planted a flag. I claimed this for Tony land. But that's what a lot of nations did. They came and they just claimed it. And then if anybody gave them any hassle, they just kill them off. A la mode. It's dirty, it's nasty. I appreciate where we are, I appreciate who we are today, but watching depending on which channel you're watching in the middle of the night, the Old West can be so glorified. And I heard Dick Van Dyke's, remember Dick Van Dyke, the old Dick Van Dyke, his brother Jerry Van Dyke was singing a song, and he told a joke about Custer. And it was funny when you're thinking at it from the 1950s point of view, but when you think of it from a native point of view, that was pretty insensitive, a joke that he told about Custer and the natives. But we kind of grew up with that. We played cowboys and Indians. This just...
Back then people didn't get offended so easily by anything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They wouldn't have survived the stuff we used to watch in the 70s on TV and in the 60s. But it doesn't take away the fact that we probably should be sensitive. If somebody took your place away, I would feel bad for you. Would I go fight for you to try to get it back? Would I go to court and testify for you to get reparations? And I say, look, my guys were slaves too. Whether I'm Spanish or Mexican, I don't know. You got, and there's native in me too. My dad told me about his grandma, and we're all kind of. Maybe somebody was here first, but nobody just popped out of the rocks here. Actually, there are some old stories that natives did pop out of the rocks here, but come to think of it, yeah, because we all have to justify what we're doing here. Early Europeans, early people from Great Britain, as they moved west, they believed in something they called manifest destiny, that the Great Spirit Columbia was moving them west. That that God was moving them west, that God had given them. Wait a minute. Now, he did that to Israel. He did that to Canaan. He did it to Palestine. He allowed it here. But the fact that I just decide that I want that land over there doesn't make it okay, right? So when I'm looking at celebrating Thanksgiving, there are a lot of people, and they're usually woke people, right, who say you shouldn't be celebrating Thanksgiving any more than you should be celebrating Columbus Day. How insensitive. We just take advantage of this season to talk about giving thanks. Just like we take advantage of the Christmas season to talk about Jesus coming. We know this is not so much the date, but it seems to me that if you're looking at your study guide, now we're going to be looking at 3 different passages. God is glad. That's a good place to start. God is glad when our gratitude gets us to give. The idea of thanksgiving, there's something to that word giving that we usually kind of miss out on. We just hear the Thanksgiving as a Thanksgiving. We give thanks. But God is glad when our gratitude gets us to give. Psalm 9, verse 1. I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell all of your wonderful deeds. Psalm 107, verse 1. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. The word in Hebrew, the Hebrew word for thanksgiving, one of the words, one of the main words that's used over and over is yada. Like yada, yada. No, that's jada. Yeah. Yada. And yada means this. Look at my hand. If I turn my hand and I extend it, that's yada. And if Eddie's hand is out and I go and I toss it to him, that's more the idea of yada. It's to toss. It's to throw with an upturned, extended hand. That's what that word means. To give thanks. I will yada you, Lord. Sometimes it's translated thanks. Sometimes it's translated praise. Sometimes it's a word for worship. But that's what it means. It means to cast. It means to shoot an arrow. It means to throw with an upturned and open hand. It means to praise, to confess, to thank, not just to think, Most of us have accepted the idea that Thanksgiving can be something that we have on the inside. It's to thank, not just to think. It's not just an attitude of gratitude, but it's a gratitude that leads to giving. That's the biblical idea of yada. It's not just an attitude of gratitude, that's a good thing, but it's a gratitude that leads to throwing, tossing with an upturned, extended hand. For example, David was grateful. If you're going to use a blue Bible, page 286. I have some of the passage here in your Bible study guide. I don't think the entire passage is there. But 236, 2 Samuel 23. Look at an example of David being grateful, not just in the Psalms, but and this is kind of a weird story. It's a cool story, but it's a weird story. 2 Samuel 23, verse 13. During harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief warriors, David's mighty men, they're called in another place, they came down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, verse 14, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water in verse 15. He was thirsty, but you're going to see there's a little more than just being thirsty. 15. David longed for water, and he said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 mighty warriors, now a little bit later we're going to find there were about 600 of these guys that were following David just to protect him, to provide for him, because even though he had been ordained, anointed the next king of Israel, he's still running from King Saul, right? So these 3 of the mighty warriors broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and they carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he took the water and he poured it out before the Lord. "Far be it from me, Lord, to do this," he said. "Is it not the blood of men who went at the risk of their lives?" And David would not drink it. That's kind of weird, isn't it? So if you look at the map of Israel, see the map of Israel? I'm not even going to try. But don't try. Bethlehem and Jerusalem, right here in the middle of my face. It's right here. Bethlehem, Jerusalem. Out on the left-hand side over here is, on the west side is a valley, a lot of valleys. The valley of Rephaim is out on the left-hand side. David is in one of the caves. There are a bunch of caves out there. Man, I was looking the other day at water's drying up all over the world, not just here at Lake Mead and the Colorado River and other rivers here close by. But I was looking at the video of the Dead Sea and how the water is receding from the banks. The water's going somewhere. It's drying up, supposedly global warming. Water is just evaporating and disappearing. But remember the story of Lot and his wife? Well, it was supposedly there about the base of the Dead Sea. Here's Israel, here's Jordan River. Down at the bottom of the Dead Sea is where Sodom and Gomorrah were. Remember, they weren't supposed to turn back, right? And she turned back, and she turned into a pillar of salt, right? Well, as people are digging, they find a lot of salt underneath. In fact, there's just tons and tons of, or meters and meters, feet and feet, tons of salt underneath the salt sea. And around the sides of it, they find balls of tar, rocks that burn under the sand. But anyway, as the water is receding, when it does rain, it runs down into what used to be the edge of the Dead Sea. And because it's all salt in that area, sand and salt, the water, it's very porous, and so the water runs in. Well, as the water runs through, I'm under the sand now. As the water runs down through the sand, it makes bigger cavities. And just like in Florida, sinkholes are developing all around the Dead Sea. So water's evaporating, water's pouring into the sinkholes. Great amounts of land are being lost. Well, in this area, there were a lot of those, but they weren't so much sinkholes as much as they were caves. Caves all over this area on the west side of where Jerusalem and Bethlehem are. So David's running from King Saul, and he has, I think at this time, 300 300 or so mighty men. Later there were about 400. Later there were about 600. And these are people that came to follow David just to serve him, just to fight with him. Whatever you need us to do, we know you're going to be the king someday. We're here to be with you. Well, they're hiding in these caves in the Valley of Rephaim. The Valley of Rephaim is, I understand, not far from Gath. Who was from Gath? Do you remember? His little shorty? Goliath was from Gath. What was he, 9 feet tall, 10 feet, 11 feet tall? He was a bigot. And depending on whose story you're reading, he might have been one of the short giants. There might have been larger giants, but he was a giant. Rephaim, I think, actually means Valley of the Giants. Green giant, right? From the Valley of the Jolly? How does that go? But I digress. Well, at that time, David was in a stronghold. That idea means that he was in one of those caves. The caves were kind of like a fortress made out of all these caves. Some of these caves are huge. I understand some of them are big enough that you could put hundreds of people in a cave. It's like amphitheaters, but deep in, like Carlsbad Caverns, but not down deep. Right? David was in there with a few hundred of his mighty men. The Philistine garrison, a big group of the Philistines were at Jerusalem. So here's, I think Jerusalem is up here, and Bethlehem is down here, and the valley is right here. David is in this valley in caves. The Philistines have a big group in Bethlehem. David is just kind of musing. He didn't command his guys, I want you guys to go get me some water. He was just musing. I wish from where we are hiding in this cave down here, I wish I could drink from the well of Bethlehem. I wish I could drink from the well at in Bethlehem near the gate. I think it's near the water gate, but he asked for, he didn't ask for water. He was just, I wish I could drink water from that particular well. It's not like that water was, oh, that's the best water I ever had. He's just longing for home. That's where he was from. I just wish I could drink water from there again. And he didn't order anything. He just kind of said it. Well, at that time, there were a bunch of Philistines right there at Bethlehem. David longed for water. Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem. So these three mighty warriors broke through the Philistine lines. I always read that as they went by stealth. You know, they went at night and they snuck through the lines. But I was reading here as I'm studying this that the idea of breaking through the Philistine lines is not that they snuck through by stealth, but they actually fought to get through. Now, there are only 3 of them, so evidently they didn't attack, 3,000 guys, but they looked for a weak place in the Philistine line, and it looks like they fought to break through, and they got water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and they carried it back to David. That's a pretty cool thing. Now, why did they do that so he would survive? Did he need a blood transfusion? Did he need, what was it, a water boy, Adam Sandler? Ooh, this is a good H2O. No, he just, I wish I was home. I wish I could drink water from home. And when they brought it back to David, he refused to drink it. And instead, he poured it out.
What a little ingrate, huh?
Oh, what an ingrate. How would you feel if you were one of the 3 guys who risked your life? Kind of dirty, huh? Dude, what are you doing?
Get your own water.
And he spoke, and who did he talk to in verse 17? Far be it from me, Lord, to do this. In David's mind, this wasn't an act of ingratitude. Is that a word? This was an act of gratitude. This is yada. His gratitude got him to give, and he gave something that meant a lot to him. People didn't understand it. I bet the guys didn't understand. Maybe they did. But he said, far be it from me, Lord, to do this. Does this water not represent the blood of the men who risked their lives for me? I think that's kind of cool. I think if I were one of the mighty men, I would think, really, dude? King dude, really? And David wouldn't drink it. David poured out the water as an offering to God because he was so moved by the sacrifice it represented. Hebrew sacrifices allowed meat eating, but they could never drink the blood. And so a lot of the sacrifices that were poured out brought to mind the fact that blood represented life, and to him, he was saying this water represented the lives of these men. Is it not the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives? David wouldn't drink the water that represented the lives of his soldiers, and instead he offered it to God. People might not understand your gratitude. They might not understand what you do. They don't understand what you do just coming here. I don't know what you're doing coming here. I like it and I appreciate it, but people don't understand. If you were just coming in, really, I mean, we're the spiritual ones. We've got better things to do, don't we?
No.
No. We make a choice. We make decisions, and I appreciate it. I do. Contrary to popular belief, when we closed, I know it's a sensitive place, but when we closed the place, it was because I did appreciate what you guys were doing. And it seemed like, you know, I was doing you a disservice to continue to carry on something that I wasn't sure what God is doing. Who am I? But I'm not saying that, hey, me and David, we understand. I'm pouring you guys out like water before the Lord. Not that. But when you're grateful, you try to yada. Your gratitude should move you to give, to do. David was grateful and he gave up his water. Doesn't sound like a big deal. It was a big deal. Hannah was grateful. You remember the story there, page 264 in your blue Bible, 1 Samuel chapter 1 and chapter 2. Remember Hannah was married to a dude named Elkanah. Remember Elkanah had a couple of wives. No harm in having a spare around. Just kidding, baby. Now back then in that culture, you could have as many wives as you could afford. Evidently he could afford a couple. But Elkanah and Hannah were childless. Remember Elkanah and another one. I think he only had 2 wives, but one of his wives had sons and daughters. And in that culture, the wife felt unfulfilled if she didn't have children, and really felt unfulfilled if she didn't have a boy child. Some were even so spiritual and spiritually literate enough to hope that they would give birth to the Messiah, to the promised one. Well, Elkanah and Hannah were childless. She prayed for years and years and years for a son, and they'd go every year to the tabernacle. They'd go to pray, and Eli the priest. Eli was he's a whole other story. But Eli the priest saw her praying, and she was praying, moving her lips. Remember? And he saw her praying, silently moving her lips. And you remember what he thought? She's drunk. That chica's drunk. Look at her over there. And so he gave her a hard time. And she said in verse 16, "Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief." Eli answered, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." And she said, "May your servant find favor in your eyes." I think it's kind of funny, didn't she say, "I haven't been drinking wine or beer" in the whole passage? So yeah, I haven't been drinking wine or beer. I'm praying out of great anguish. He said, "Go in peace. May the God of Israel grant you what you've asked of him." 18, "May your servant find favor in your eyes." Verse 19, the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant. She gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, meaning heard by God, because I asked the Lord for him. When the boy was old enough to come to Eli the priest, she brought the boy to the temple. "Pardon me, my Lord, as surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord." I think this is some 3 years later, maybe. "I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life, he will be given over to the Lord." And the little guy worshiped the Lord there. So she brought her little boy Samuel to Eli the priest. Well, it seems, now I don't know this. But it seems that Hannah neither regretted nor resented her promise. But I don't know. You think she ever resented taking the little guy to live with the priest? Did she have to take the little guy to the priest to live there? I don't think so. She promised to give the little guy to the Lord. You think that was the only way that she could have fulfilled that promise? I mean, if you decide you want to give your life to the Lord, you have to move into the church? I hope not. That doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you have to move in and I take care of you, but that's what prompted her. That's what came into her head and heart when she was looking at how she could make good on this promise that she made to the Lord. Instead, she was deeply grateful. She loved her little guy Samuel, but honored God and showed her gratitude by giving her son to the God who gave him to her, Yada. Hannah was grateful, and she gave up her son. Yada is a gratitude that gets you to give. It's not just something you think. It's something you're doing to show that thanksgiving. So it's to thank, not think. Not just an attitude of gratitude, but a gratitude that leads to giving. David poured out water, and I'm sure the guys didn't understand. And Hannah gave up her son. I don't even understand. I think there were other ways to probably do that. Eli wasn't that good a guy. He was a priest, but he was kind of a mess. And his sons were a mess. Aren't his kids, they weren't Hophni and Phinehas. Those were, I think, Aaron's sons. These guys were, I don't remember, but these guys were a mess. What's that? He was a bad dad. Aren't these the sons that were taking advantage of some of the women that came to worship? Yeah, they would take the best of the offerings. Yeah. These are bad guys. They were bad kids. But they were Baptist preachers, so you cut them some slack. No, God killed them. But anyway, Hannah did what she thought was right. Yeah. David was grateful. He gave up his water. Hannah was grateful. She gave up her son. And then finally, this sinful woman was grateful. Hey, what's that?
It was Hophni and Phinehas.
Was it Hophni and Phinehas? Hophni and Phinehas. Who were Aaron's sons that offered strange fire?
I don't know. I'll look. I don't know.
Thank you. She knows everything. She's on Google. She's so smart.
Nadab and Abihu.
Oh, Nadab and Abihu. Yeah. Nadab and Abihu were Aaron's sons. Moses' brother Aaron had two sons, and they were offering sacrifices before the Lord. But there were a couple of guys that were drinking before they went to serve. Preachers shouldn't drink.
Drinking before they went to serve it?
Yeah,
Wow.
they were. They were. In fact, I don't know if it says they were drunk, but they'd been drinking. And I don't know if God killed them because they were drunk before they went in, but they were drunk and they offered fire, a strange fire. So as I understand it, God provided the fire. God brought the chamuska. And they were supposed to just keep it burning and move it and it sounds like they just kind of used their big, they just lit the fire. But whatever they did, they offered a fire that God called a strange fire. And God killed them. But you want to take a look and make sure that I'm reading that right? That they had been drinking, because here I'm preaching a sermon on don't drink, and I might have made all that up. I never do that. You're not good at it. You wouldn't be good at it.
Hophni and Phinehas got drunk a lot.
Hophni and Phinehas got drunk a lot. Now, does the Bible say, in the New Testament, does the Bible say that a preacher can't drink?
No.
No. What does it say? Don't get drunk. Don't linger long, King James. Don't linger long beside your wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says. Don't linger long beside your wine.
Just a little while.
Just a little, just a little while. Every preacher that I read of that gets in trouble, though, every single one, they all drink. Every single one. Every single one. They think it's okay to drink. And somehow in the story, maybe it's just because unbelievers write the stories that I'm reading, but they make it a point to bring that out. This one last guy that I think I mentioned him Sunday morning from a huge church in Florida. The guy that bought a house for $400,000, sold it to the church for 1.2 or whatever. One of the things that he did, one of the egregious things he did, he used to send his staff to go buy bourbon for him. Well, if you're going to buy booze, go through the drive-thru yourself. That's what Archie's drive-thrus are for. Yeah. People love to read the guy from Texas. He does a lot of stories. Church of Christ. What's the guy's name? Church of Christ, babe. Everybody loves to read his stuff. Um,
Oh, I know. Shoot, I'll tell you in a minute.
Max Lucado.
Yes.
Yeah. He used to go out of yeah. You know Max Lucado. Yeah. It's a big guy. Everybody loves him. He's an okay guy, but he was a closet drinker, and he knew that he wasn't supposed to. So he was like from Albuquerque, he would drive to Los Lunas or what's on the other side, Moriarty or someplace. He's from Texas, I think. He would go out of town to buy his booze, and he would drink it in the parking lot in a brown paper bag like a wino. And this guy's gazillionaire. He's a millionaire. He sells, you know, yeah, a lot of books. Big preachers read him and quote him, and then you just look at the Jimmy and the Jim Bakers back in the day, and he's still up.
I think he was gay. He was a gay. Nice boy.
Was he a gay?
He was a gay.
Actually, all those big guys paid a lot of money because there were people who accused them of being gay. Jim Baker, Jimmy Swaggart, the TBN guy, all of those guys paid hush money to people. Now, it doesn't mean they were, but they were accused of it, and they paid a lot of money to not let the story get out. The stories got out. Our governor is?
She paid a lot of money.
She paid a lot of money because she grabbed a dude.
Yep. We paid a lot of money.
We paid a lot of money. Yeah.
Not
And she likes to drink too. When you couldn't go to the grocery store, she was having her people buy booze for her, huh? She actually went shopping by herself one time for the jewelry.
Yeah, to Lily Burhack.
Okay, where am I?
Don't get me started.
Don't get me started. Luke 7:36. This sinful woman, when one of the Pharisees, a Pharisee named Simon, and there are a couple of stories. This is, they're not the same story, but this is one. When one of the Pharisees named Simon invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life, which is usually synonymous with prostitute, learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. This means evidently that she had been very successful as a businesswoman, because this alabaster box was very expensive. It was a vase. And as I understand it, the vase would be filled with the perfume, the spikenard, and then would be sealed. So to open it, you basically have to break it, like the old-time piggy banks when we were kids. This woman in the town who lived a sinful life, makes it sound like presently, but my guess is, well, it says that she was living a sinful life. Probably a prostitute, learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. Remember, you'd invite people to your house. You'd invite the guest of honor, and you'd have family and friends who would come to eat with you. And the way a lot of these were set up, they would set it up so that it was like a red carpet event that you'd watch on TV from Hollywood, right? From someplace like that. And people would come, and they would gather around your house, and they would just watch who's coming and who's eating in there. So it wasn't unusual that she showed up, but she, like those mighty men, she broke through the line. She broke through the ropes, and she went on in, and she got close to Jesus, the guest of honor. Now, this is not Mary, the sister of Martha and Lazarus at Bethany. Matthew, Mark, and John talk about that other story, and there's no reason to believe that this was Mary Magdalene. A lot of people believe that this is Mary Magdalene, who, I don't think it says that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, but it says that Jesus had cast demons out of her. Anyway, this is not that Mary. She stood behind Jesus at his feet weeping, began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair. She kissed his feet, poured perfume on them. Verse 39. When the Pharisee who had invited Jesus saw this, he said to himself, he didn't say it out loud, he said it in his heart, if this man were really a prophet, he would know who was touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. Most of the guys that I read, most of the guys who are smarter than I, who are commenting on this, say that Simon's main reason for inviting Jesus wasn't so much to celebrate and honor him, as much as to try to trick him, try to catch him, like the Pharisees did. Let's see if we can catch him doing something bad here. Well, Jesus answered him, even though Simon had said this in his heart. Verse 40, Jesus answered him, Simon, I have something to tell you. Tell me, teacher, he said. And he told a story. Jesus told a story. Two people owed money to a certain moneylender. One owed him 500 denarii. A denarii, I think is a penny, but a penny in that day, the idea is how much you make for working an entire day. So it's a day's wages, okay? One owed him 500 denarii. The other owed him only 50 and 500. Neither of them had the money to pay the lender back, and he forgave the debts of both. Now, which do you think will love the lender more? The one who had the debt of 5 or the one who had the debt of 500? And Simon replied, well, I suppose the one who had the bigger debt forgiven. Jesus says, you have judged correctly. 44. Then he turned toward the woman and he said to Simon, he turned toward the woman, but he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You didn't give me water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. It was customary. People would take a bath whenever they were able to take a bath, every week, every month. I don't know if it's bath month or whenever. They would take a bath, but they're walking around doing their thing in sandals, right? And it was customary when you'd go to someone's house, if you came to my house, to offer you a way to wash your feet. If you really were an honored guest in my home, I would wash your feet. Simon, from the time I came into your house, you didn't wash my feet. You didn't provide water or a towel for me. But she washed my feet with her tears and dried my feet with her hair. 45, you did not give me a kiss. Again, that was customary. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered has not stopped kissing my feet. Are you in the habit of kissing anybody's feet? Especially if they're just visiting in your home, right? Why was she doing this? It's a matter of honor. It's a matter of showing this gratitude. Jesus said, you did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. That phrase of her great love has shown, it kind of gives you the idea of the order. Her great sins are not forgiven because she's done these things. She did these things to me and for me because her sins have been forgiven. She's done all these things because her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. Forgiveness first, yada after. Whoever has been forgiven little, loves little. 48. Then Jesus said to her, your sins are forgiven. Again, Jesus was not in the habit of forgiving people who just did nice things. Evidently, she had done what everybody else was supposed to do to have their sins forgiven. They decided to follow him. They trusted him, right? Well, the other guests in 49 began to say among themselves, who is this who even forgives sins? Verse 50, Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you, not your deeds. Your faith has saved you. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. It looks like her desperation to get to Jesus gave her courage to act. Her weeping of repentance was misunderstood, do you think? Do you think it was misunderstood? My goodness, yes. What is she doing? What is she doing here? How dare she try to get close to Jesus? But the woman was grateful, and just like David gave up the water and Hannah gave up her son, this woman gave up her perfume. Again, Psalm 9:1, I will give thanks to you, God. I will toss to you. I will give to you with an upturned and extended hand. I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds. 107 verse 1, give thanks to the, that's a radio station, isn't it? 107:1, give thanks to the Lord. Give thanks to the Lord. Give yada to the Lord. Turn your hand and extend it. Make sure there's something in it to give is the idea. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his love endures forever. Remember, thanks, yada, means to cast, to shoot an arrow, to throw, to toss with an upturned and open hand. It means to praise. Sometimes the word is confess. It means to thank, not just to think. It's not just an attitude of gratitude, but it's a gratitude that leads to giving. So again, Hannah was grateful. She gave up her son. David was grateful. He gave up his water. The woman was grateful and gave up her perfume. We're grateful to God. It begs the question, what could we give? What does he want us to give? Our time. This is a trite phrase. Is that the word? Where it's a cliche. It's a figure of speech that's used way too often, but it fits. What could we give to God? Our time, our talent, our treasure. That would be our money, our skills, right? Well, some might gaze at our gratitude and say, wow, what a waste. That's what they said to the woman. That's what they said to David. What a waste. You might give out of your gratitude. You might give out of your gratitude because you see such an opportunity to do a good thing for God. And we hope God will accept the gift of our gratitude and say, wow, not what a waste, and not just what an opportunity, but wow, what a sacrifice. Good job. That's what we want. So as we're giving thanks this Thanksgiving, keep that in mind. Giving thanks means to God. You could, to me if you want to, but the idea of being grateful, yada, is to turn and extend your hand and toss to God your gratitude. Lord Jesus, thank you again. Thank you for the guys who are here tonight. Thank you for those who will be watching online. Thank you, Lord, that you can go far beyond words that I say. You can take your truth and drive it into our hearts. God, I pray that maybe we will have learned a little more of your word tonight, but more than that, God, I pray that somehow you will move us to recognize how much we can be grateful for, how you have blessed us, how you have taken care of us. And Lord, I pray that that gratitude would move us to give. Help us realize that you saved us and you haven't taken us home yet. So you still want us to serve you. You still want us to live for you. You still want us to reach people for you. You still want us to help them live for you as well. So God, please accept our gratitude as we try to give back to you ministry, as we try to give back to you out of our time, our talent, and our treasure. Please use us. Please change us. Please use us. Lord, please save us. Please use us. Lord, please forgive us. Please use us. Lord, please accept our gratitude. Please use us that we might see people saved, that we might see people changed, that we might see people serving. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. God bless you guys. And the song of worship for tonight is yada, 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 ying, ying, ying. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. In Leviticus 10. Regulations for priests or for these guys?
Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their censers, put fire in them, added incense, and then they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Moses had said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord spoke of when he said, among those that approach me, I will be holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored." Aaron remained silent. And then Moses basically told other relatives, come get your cousins, take them outside the camp.
Yeah.
Then verse 6, Moses told Aaron and his sons, don't let your hair look unkempt, don't tear your clothes or you'll die, and the Lord will be angry with the whole community. A few other verses. Then the Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons are not to drink wine or other fermented drink whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, so that you can distinguish between the holy and the common, unclean and clean.
So he told them from then on, don't drink before you go in, implying.
So there could, the implication was maybe they were drunk, and that's because they were not treating God's holy place, they were treating it in the town.
Yeah. Good, thank you.
Next spring